Let this day, December 8th, be known as the first day of the Kevin Huerter Sixth Man of the Year campaign tour. Huerter goes crazy as the Kings score 140 points for the second straight game. They wipe the floor with the Utah Jazz 141-97, and we're breaking it all down right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. At home today, this is the first Kings home game in a long time that I have missed when I had the ability to go. I missed a home game or two last year when I was in Las Vegas covering the 49ers Super Bowl, but it's been a while, and I certainly had FOMO not being inside of the Golden One Center to see tonight's performance. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not mad that I missed the Kings exploding for 141 points. I'm not mad that I missed Kevin Huerter exploding off of the bench and having his breakout performance, which of course we're going to talk about here in just a second. I'm mad that I missed Doug McDermott. Man, Doug McDermott went crazy in the final 8.5 minutes of this game. He came in garbage time, went 6 of 7 from three-point range. He hit his first 6 straight threes, 18 points off of the bench in 8 minutes and 22 seconds in garbage time. That was fun. That was fun watching it through my TV as much as I'm dealing with this illness at home right now. That got me to pop and got me to stand up and enjoy it. I'm sure the Golden One Center was going absolutely bonkers when McDermott was going crazy like that. That was just really fun, right? And it's one of these performances for the Kings. When it rains, it pours. And we're going to spend a lot of time going through some numbers here on Locked On Kings because the Kings are in a stretch of really good basketball right now. It's a short stretch, but they're in a stretch of good basketball, and we'll dive into the numbers with that. But there's no way we're starting this podcast with anybody or anything other than Kevin Huerter, because Kevin Huerter was fantastic off the bench tonight for the Sacramento Kings. 26 points, 10 of 14 from the field, 6 of 9 from three-point range, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. And what I loved about his block is it turned into more. He blocked a shot. Kings came back in transition, found Huerter in that wing 3 spot, which he loves. He knocks it down with confidence. And confidence is a big thing with Kevin. The first thing that I noticed with Kevin in a game like tonight, and watching it actually through the perspective of the broadcast on TV versus in the arena, was kind of beneficial in this sense. Like, I could see the confidence in the way that Kevin Huerter was playing, the way he moved, the way he looked. He just looked refreshed. He looked like he was playing freely off of the bench. Right now, I'm not going to pretend that Kevin Huerter is happy to have lost his starting spot again. I'm not going to pretend that Kevin would prefer to be coming in off the bench like he is versus starting. That's not the case at all, right? But it seems like Kevin has understood, or at least tonight embraced, this role of, okay, my job is to come into this game, bring energy, knock down shots, and really be the catalyst for offense with this second unit. Now, the Kings don't, like most NBA teams, the Kings don't have a starting unit and a bench unit, right? It's not like 5 bench guys replace 5 starters. They stagger their rotation. So Kevin is still out there a lot with Fox, or out there with Monk, or out there with Sabonis, or Keegan Murray, whatever. So Kevin's still playing with guys that he's very familiar with, having played with them over the last 2 years. So it's not like the way Kevin has to play is tremendously different. What is different is that the Sacramento Kings are probably a little more reliant on Kevin in this role offensively than they were when he was with the starters, who out of the gate are trying to establish themselves more, trying to get DeRozan going, get Fox going, Domantas Sabonis down low, even Keegan Murray to some extent, right? Kevin Huerter was at best fourth, most of the time fifth in terms of got to find his shots and the fifth mouth to feed in that starting unit. Coming in off the bench, it just looks like Kevin knows exactly what he's supposed to do and really has embraced it. And maybe he's more motivated, right? Maybe he's more motivated because he's pissed off that he lost his starting spot. Maybe he's more motivated because he knows that this is a opportunity for him to show his worth. Maybe he just wants to kind of give an FU to Mike Brown, the coaching staff, and everybody that says he should be coming in off the bench. He's not the starting caliber player that the Kings need out of that spot. Regardless, he's playing really well over these last 4 games. The last 4 games off the bench, Kevin Huerter's 15 points per game, 57% from the field, 50% from three-point range, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and just under a steal a game off the bench over these last 4. The Kings are 3-1 over that 4-game stretch. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Kings are playing their best basketball and are winning games when Kevin Huerter is also balling out. Now, Kevin Huerter's bad game in that mix was the Memphis game, where he, Fox, and Huerter all struggled shooting the basketball. And lo and behold, the Kings lost that game. Malik Monk, when Malik came in off the bench in this 6-man role, it was playmaking and energy. That's what Malik brought. And there is still an element of that the Kings need from Huerter. But where Malik was so important with his playmaking and getting others involved in his 2-man game with bigs, Kevin's job coming off the bench is, like, I just used the term flamethrower with Doug McDermott. That's Kevin Huerter's job coming off the bench. Like, come in and just torch. Come in and shoot. Like, let it fly. If it's not falling, you can live with it. But come in there and your primary responsibility is to score. That doesn't mean that's the only thing you do. You still got to defend. You still got to rebound. You still got to dish. And he's been doing that. Like I said tonight, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, a block. So he had a really good game in general. So it's not like offense is his only priority, the only thing that he's doing. But what the Kings would love out of Kevin, the best version of Kevin Huerter as a 6-man, and I know I made the 6-man of the year campaign joke. He's got a long way to go before that, of course. What Kevin Huerter is at the best version of Kevin Huerter as a 6-man is just that flamethrower, volume shooter, Kyle Korver type bench presence. Maybe even like Jamal Crawford's kind of a bit of a stretch because Jamal was a little more of a playmaker and scorer off the dribble. But the same way Jamal Crawford was that offensive scoring energy off the bench for years for the Clippers, that's what the Kings need out of Kevin Huerter. Now, I mentioned the last 4 games. Let's dive into the numbers of how good of basketball the Sacramento Kings are playing over this 4-game stretch. 511 total points in these 4 games. That includes the loss in Memphis. They're averaging 127 points per game over these 4 games. I think they're also averaging 127 points per game since Malik Monk went into the starting lineup. They have a win margin in their 3 wins, a win margin of 26 points. So they're not just winning, they're dominating. Like in these 3 wins, they are blowing teams out. And we've talked so much about how important the 3-point ball is to the Sacramento Kings' success offensively. The Kings have made 60 threes, 60 threes, and are shooting 41.9% from 3-point range over this 4-game stretch. Yeah, it's no wonder that they're winning basketball games, right? Finally, the 3-point shot is dropping. Now, that does include the Kings going 8 of 35 from 3-point range in Memphis. So imagine if the Kings were a little bit better in that game. 1, they'd be 4-0. And 2, that percentage would be even better than it already is, that astounding 41.9%. I'm not saying, and the Kings certainly aren't going to go out there going, the 3-point shooting is fixed, right? The cold spell is over, because we've seen this team can easily fall right back into it. And it's still, I think this is going to be an issue that ultimately plagues this team throughout the year. They're going to have nights where they're cold. And that's where the defense is so important. And over this stretch, right, we're going to talk about the offense. Of course, what jumps off the page is the 3-point shooting. What jumps off the page is the Kings scoring 511 total points, including back-to-back 140-plus point games. So the offense is going to steal the headline. But the defense has been really solid too. Over these 4 games, the Kings are allowing 107.7 points per game. That would be 6th in the NBA. The Kings are also holding their opponents. Remember how bad their 3-point defense has been? The Kings are holding their opponents to 35% from 3-point range over these 4 games, and their opponents are shooting a high volume of threes, that would be 8th in the NBA and a near 3% improvement over Sacramento's average. The Kings are averaging allowing almost 38% from three-point range per game. This 35% is a significant improvement over these last these last 4 performances for Sacramento. And it fits in with what Mike Brown was talking a lot about pregame. Now, I wasn't there. I was told about it. And also Sean Cunningham from Fox 40, he posted the full pregame press conference of Mike Brown. And Mike speaks relatively passionately about three-point reliance. And while he acknowledges what a lot of us are talking about, which is the Kings, if they aren't making threes, they're not going to win basketball games, he makes a very good point, very important point about the Kings can't allow their three-point shooting to dictate their wins and their losses. By doing so, you have a weak or a losing mentality. To allow something, while three-point shooting is important, to allow that to dictate your chances of winning a basketball game or the odds of you winning a basketball game, and that be the primary factor, that's not a good thing. The Kings cannot base their play in all facets, especially defensively, on if that three-point shot is falling, right? The Kings cannot hang their head if the three-point shot isn't falling the same way that we saw tonight. And we've seen them hang their head at times when that shot's not dropping. But I will say this, and this is where I kind of disagree, or this is where I separate myself from Mike Brown a little bit. Now that shots are falling, though, over these last 4 games with the shots falling, with the exception of the Memphis game, we're seeing defenses ultimately have a harder time knowing what to do against Sacramento. Because like I talked about, this offense, this roster is built to have a 3-level versatile attack. You can get to the rim with Sabonis and Fox. DeMar DeRozan and De'Aaron Fox can hunt ISOs, and then you have all the three-point shooting on this team. Well, if you knock out the three-point shooting, then defenses can kind of pack the paint, pack the mid-range, make life more difficult, cut off lanes, and dare the Kings to shoot. And the Kings have been shooting so bad that gamble has been working for opponents. Now that gamble's not working right now. So defenses have to decide, okay, now we have to guard the perimeter more. That allows Fox, DeRozan, Sabonis, Monk, everybody to touch the paint more, which opens up everything for the Sacramento Kings. So I agree that you can't, three-point shooting isn't everything for this Kings team. But when the three-point shot is falling, it seems to open everything else up. We're going to talk about this performance and why it has nothing to do with the Utah Jazz. DeMar DeRozan feels like he has found his fit with this Kings team. Plus, trade interest in John Collins, what a potential deal could look like. That's all still to come here on Locked On Kings. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. Well, with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer on first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. So I've already seen it a couple times on social media since this game ended. Actually, I saw it while the game was still going on. And I know it's going to be in my comment section somewhere on YouTube, and I'm going to probably get an email or two about it. Matt, chill. It's against the Jazz, right? The Kings looked good, but it's against the Jazz. They're 3-0 against the Jazz. The Jazz are a sorry basketball team. Let me tell you why this performance has everything to do with the Sacramento Kings and nothing to do with their opponent. Regardless of if it's the Utah Jazz, the Boston Celtics, the dream team, or your local high school team. It does not matter, because what this performance was about for the Kings is who they are and what they can control. First off, as we know, the Kings haven't always handled their business well against bad teams. Like, I know they're 3-0 against the Jazz, which is great. The Kings are 5-3 against under 500 teams so far this season, so that certainly could be better. But everything about this performance is about the Kings and has to do with the Kings. The shots were falling. Sure, they could have been defended better, but we've seen the Sacramento Kings get wide open looks against every team in the league, and more often they haven't been falling. The shot was falling tonight. They were giving consistent energy and playing with high energy on both ends of the floor. That has nothing to do with who they're playing against. The offense looked more balanced and in sync. I'm not talking about the shots that the Kings were generating and getting and how they were being defended. I'm talking about how they incorporated different guys. Kevin Huerter looked great off the bench. Again, I'm not just talking about how many points he scored because of who was guarding him on the Utah Jazz. I'm talking about the way Kevin Huerter played, the energy and the confidence that Kevin Huerter played with. And then the defense was engaged and aggressive. Now, sure, the offense of the Utah Jazz is not great. I will say this, though. Lauri Markkanen is a really, really good basketball player, and the Sacramento Kings, specifically Keegan Murray, held Lauri Markkanen to 8 points on 2 of 9 shooting from the field in 25 and a half minutes tonight. So Lauri certainly didn't get going at all. So the Kings defensively were really, really strong in this game consistently. This Kings team, they've been their own worst enemy. And that's something that's important to remember. Like, you go through the losses this season, you go through these first 20 some odd games. Mental mistakes and inconsistencies with how the Kings are playing. That's been the bottom line to why the Kings are 12-13 at this point and why the Kings aren't in a significantly better spot. Like, there are a handful of games we could point to already this year where the Kings' own mistakes, shooting themselves in the foot, is what cost them games. So a performance like this, a performance like the other night against San Antonio. Yes, the Spurs were without Victor Wembanyama in that game. I don't care, because it was how the Kings approached the game on the second night of a back-to-back, how they attacked both ends of the floor. The shot started falling, which was great, but the Kings were still moving the basketball. They were touching the paint a lot better, which is a staple of Mike Brown's offense, right? The way the Kings have played over this 4-game stretch, really. I know the Memphis game was frustrating because the Kings weren't hitting shots and the offense was inconsistent, and you saw how frustrated it got after that game. But how the Kings have played over these last 4 games, I think, has way more to do with them and who they are and them figuring themselves out versus anybody that they were playing. Right? Because it wasn't like Memphis beat the Sacramento Kings because they're so much better than the Kings are because John Morant was sensational. Memphis beat the Kings because their bench stepped up in a major way, and the Kings just went ice cold offensively in the fourth quarter. So, to me, what we're seeing from the Kings over this stretch is they're figuring some stuff out. Specifically, it feels like they're really figuring out the incorporation of DeMar DeRozan. DeMar had 18 points tonight, 8 of 14 from the field. I think I felt tonight, and again, watching it on TV was a different kind of welcome perspective. I felt tonight the Sacramento Kings did maybe their best job all season of balancing DeMar and where he likes the ball, DeMar spots, his ISOs, his post-ups, with, okay, the Kings still moving the basketball, DHOs, free-flowing offense, attacking the rim, touching the paint, right? I think it didn't feel like one ever took away from the other. It didn't feel like the Sacramento Kings offense ever came to a screeching halt because of DeRozan. The Kings still got out in transition, right? They did a good job when they turned the Jazz over 20 times, scored 22 points off of those turnovers. They had 14 fast break points. So the Kings still got out in transition. And then in the half court, when things naturally slow down, it's not like they just gave the ball to DeRozan, who dribbled 16 seconds off the shot clock. They got the ball to DeRozan in his spots. He went to work pretty quickly. More often than not, he scored. So I just felt watching this game, and I'll watch it back and kind of confirm it, look at the film a little bit, but it just looked like the Sacramento Kings knew, okay, this is a spot where we go to DeRozan. Okay, this is a spot where we go away from it. And it wasn't like, okay, when the Kings are going away from DeRozan, he's just standing there not doing anything. Because there were a couple attempts that DeRozan had he actually went 0 of 2 from 3-point range tonight. Both of them good looks. And he should have had a 3, but he put his toe on the line. DeMar DeRozan is a king of not getting threes because by centimeters or inches. He's not far back enough. But it just felt like a good incorporation of DeRozan. And it's important to note, right? A lot of people say it takes about 20 games or so to incorporate a new player and to get them comfortable. This is game 20 for DeMar. He missed a handful of games earlier on because of his back injuries, right? So 20 games in, feels like he's figuring it out. Feels like the Kings' primary players, their starters, are figuring it out. I think Malik Monk moving into the starting lineup has also helped with the incorporation of DeMar a lot. So I like to see that. Like nobody had their shots taken away from them by DeMar or vice versa. Like I said, DeMar 18 points on 14 shots, Fox 21 points on 16 shots, Monk 16 points on 15 shots, Sabonis 19 points on 13 shots. Everybody ate, everybody touched the ball. Nothing came to a screeching halt. It was good. It was balanced, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, you name it, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So I remember after the second Kings victory over the Utah Jazz a couple of weeks ago, I kind of mentioned and threw out there the possibility of maybe that was a John Collins audition, John Collins tryout game. John Collins, especially with his time in Atlanta, has always been a name, I won't say connected to the Kings, but always just has been floated around in Kings circles, whether it was reports or just conversation amongst media members or conversation amongst fans. Like John Collins has always been that name for the Kings to kind of keep tabs on and keep an eye on in a potential trade. And of course, a trade has never gone down. Well, how about now? You feeling any different? And I'm asking you, I would love to hear from you about how you feel about a potential John Collins trade. Now we have to talk about logistics and we have to talk about some very important questions that need to be asked about a potential John Collins trade. First off, Collins, 19 points, 5 of 8 from three-point range tonight, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block. John Collins certainly does a lot that would help the Sacramento Kings. I've heard many say that he's been the most consistent player on the Jazz, and if not the best, like the second best player on the Jazz this season. Now, of course, the Utah Jazz are terrible, so maybe that's saying something. And I don't expect the version of John Collins on the Utah Jazz is the version of the Sacramento Kings are going to get for 2 reasons. Number one, volume of opportunity. He's just not going to get as much opportunity for the Kings. And number 2, and this is the first important question to ask, his role. Will John Collins accept coming off the bench? Will he give his all and play hard for you coming off of the bench? Because you're not moving anybody out of the starting lineup to start John Collins. You're not. You're not moving Keegan Murray, that's for damn sure. And you're not moving Malik Monk out to make DeRozan the 2 and Keegan the 3 to have John Collins at the 4. No shot in hell you're doing that. So if you're trading for John Collins, you're acknowledging that Collins is a boost off the bench. I think that's what most people in Sacramento, when they talk about John Collins, feels like, yeah, no, I want John to come in and bolster the Sacramento Kings bench. Okay, but does John want to do that? Because right now he's getting starting caliber minutes, getting a lot of opportunity in Utah. Sure, that team is terrible, but he's getting his money. He's eating. He's having fun, I imagine. So if John's not cool with it, if he's not going to play hard in that role, then already you're like, okay, well, I'm definitely not giving up the assets that it's going to take to get him. And then that's the second question is, what are those assets? What's the price tag? Right? I'm not sending out. I know Danny Ainge is going to be Danny Ainge and try and drag it out and try and fleece the Kings as much as possible. He's not in a power position in this scenario. And neither really are the Sacramento Kings. So, but the Kings are in a position to where if this deal falls apart, okay, it's not that big of a deal. The Kings aren't desperate to bring John Collins to Sacramento. So I'm not sending out more than a protected first round pick in this deal. I know picks are probably what the Jazz are most interested in, considering their hard rebuilding. And then if you're looking about the finances of actually making this trade work, the best way to make it work is Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles. You package those two together, send them to Utah. John Collins comes back to Sacramento. Those are two, predictably, or at least they're expected to be two important bench pieces for now one, hopefully really important bench piece. So you could do that. What I'm sure as hell not doing is Huerter, Trey, and a first round pick. No shot. John Collins is not worth that. If Danny Ainge offers that, I laugh and hang up the phone. Sure as hell not doing that. So the Kings are pretty limited in this deal. And they, by the way, they can't do Kevin Huerter and like McLaughlin and two or three other players, Doug McDermott and these two or three other minimum players just to make the salaries work. The Jazz aren't going to do that. So yeah, I don't see a scenario where that those trades rarely ever happen anyway. So you see the limitations to how a deal could potentially go down. So I don't think John Collins to Sacramento is happening. But if it's something worth having a conversation about, hey, you tell me. You like John Collins? You like the idea of it? You don't. That's fine. Things are about to slow way down for the Sacramento Kings. So we have time to have conversations like this because the Kings play one game next week. Thanks, NBA Cup. One game next week. That's in New Orleans on Thursday. The game after that is not until next Monday against Denver in Sacramento. So that means the Kings have 6 available days for practice time and recovery starting tomorrow. One question that I have, because time off, I guess, is never really a bad thing, especially with how banged up the Kings have been this season. But I wonder, with how the Kings are playing right now, is there a chance that this could be bad timing? Right, the Kings seems like they found a rhythm. They found a flow. They're playing really, really well right now. Now they're going to hit a screeching halt and only play one basketball game in the next 7 or 8 days. Is that a good thing? I don't know. I think it's just something worth paying attention to. I'm very interested to see how the Sacramento Kings come out on Thursday against the Pelicans, if they look the same or if they look a little lethargic or look a little slower. And look, we know Mike Brown loves his practice time. He's going to give his guys at least one day off or probably a couple days off over this stretch, maybe just one, to help them recover and everything like that. But we know Mike Brown loves his practice time, so he's going to use this opportunity to his advantage to get guys together, to practice together. And I'm very interested to see if the Kings, when they play again, look any sharper in specific areas. What I'm really looking at is three-point defense. You have time now defensively to really work and grind and try and hammer this home and fix that three-point defensive issue. Really get in the lab and figure it out. So does the three-point defense look any better on Thursday or next Monday with all that practice time? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But a win for the Sacramento Kings. They're feeling good. Thank God they're feeling better than I'm feeling right now. But I appreciate all you putting up with my nasally voice and sorry to those of you who are at the Golden One Center tonight going, "Where's Matt?" I wish I was there. It feels really weird missing it. I don't like it. I don't like being away from you guys. I don't like being away from the Golden One Center and the Kings. But I guess it means I got the podcast out earlier, so you're welcome in that sense. But appreciate your support regardless. Just because the Kings are slowing down doesn't mean we are slowing down. I'll have podcasts and guests and newsletters and everything for you this week. So we'll get through this downtime together. I appreciate your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.